What's going on, guys? Welcome to another episode of Healthspan Academy. I'm your host, Craig Shearhart, and with me today is James Jowsey, who's a coach of elite athletes and an expert in injury prevention. He's the head coach of Red Pill Trinity Programme. He's got 17 years of experience in the fitness industry. He's worked with a range of pro athletes, some CrossFit athletes, some English Premier League, some championship football players, and some premier rugby players as well. So today is all about how James helps his athletes get some elite athleticism and also prevent injuries. James, great to see you, man. Thanks so much for being here.
Thanks for having me. Sorry, just to add, a joint head coach of Red Pill.
Cool. Awesome.
Co-owner.
Fair enough. Just get that correction in there. Awesome. Yeah. I want to kick this off with obviously working with athletes. You need a base level of like just sport understanding. How was athletics for you growing up? Was that something that was kind of forced on you? Did you just kind of find you fell into sport naturally, or how did that kind of pan out?
Yeah, mum and dad aren't particularly athletic. My dad was in the military briefly. Not that that doesn't require athleticism, but he was actually more a driver in the military rather than fitness and infantry type scenario.
Cool.
But growing up, football was always, soccer was always my passion. But I did from a young age soccer, swimming, karate, basketball. I did long jump, triple jump. A
little bit of everything.
Played rugby, but football became my sole focus from probably about the age of 14, maybe.
Nice.
Or something. I had to cut out the other sports because I got called up for the England schoolboys national team, and then signed for Manchester United as a youth player. Made it through to the reserves, and then end of athletic kind of dreams, I should say, rather than career. End of that was definitely my love, my sport, and thing that I've tried to replace and never have. But the love of coaching is the new focus. So,
amazing. And how did that start for you? Were you just kind of, people told you should be a coach one day, or was that something you always kind of had on your radar, or how did coaching kind of come into your life?
So I went from as an athlete, as a professional footballer. I loved the whole picture of it. I wanted to get good scores in the jump testing, fitness testing. I wanted to have low body fat, so I did the nutrition. So I went in the gym, did that stuff. It was just that athlete life was something that I loved, all of it, as well as the sport itself. So kind of when I decided to seek another avenue, I went into personal training. Cool. And I'd say quite quickly, my philosophy was, became apparent as a coach. I liked all my clients to do everything correctly. I was really a stickler for form. And that's where the interest and passion came for that, was when you're giving all the cues that you've taught, learned, tried to develop yourself across your multiple amount of clients, and it doesn't matter what you say, there's no magic. Yeah, true. There was no magic button, no magic cue for them. And then that's where the whole looking deeper into anatomy, physiology, principles of training, then start to go, well, if they've not got enough hip extension because the hip flexor complex, anterior hip is too tight, then we need to do a bit of a release on that and then feed it back into the exercise where you're trying to get hip extension. And all that process kind of just led into that. So I then pretty much I got into CrossFit myself personally. In the middle of kind of giving up football, did CrossFit, then went back to football. But in that time of doing CrossFit, I quickly began working with athletes with injuries or struggling to get into positions from the stuff that I've been doing. So that quickly became my kind of focus then from that level. And building through. It then became of people coming back to me with the same injuries, and then it came down to going full circle, looking at the analysis of the program and saying, well, you've got this and this issue, and your program is compounding those issues. So you're only going to end up, we're just going to go like this until you change your program. So then I started coaching people, and cool. Here we are however many years later.
That's amazing. So soccer or football / and into CrossFit. And so you've been started coaching some high level games athletes, Sam Briggs and a few others.
Yep.
So talk me through when you first start working with those athletes. What do those first conversations look like? Is it focused around their current programming and maybe looking for imbalances and how to tweak things and kind of work with where they're at, or how do you start to work with them to get them to the next step?
So I mean, yeah, I always sit down with the athlete, and the thing you hear, I know a lot of companies or other people are very fond of testing.
Yeah.
But like the habits that we actually kind of develop as a company is like the athlete knows himself already.
Yeah. Yeah.
They should do. If they don't, there's a problem. So
For sure.
we sit down with a very simple conversation and go, right, what's your dream workout? Okay, now what's your worst nightmare? And literally in those, like they know, like, and then we literally just go through that process and go, okay, what movements do you hate? What movements do you love? Like, and they give you a profile already. And then it's going so then we then go to that process. I don't need to waste 8 weeks of testing.
Yeah.
And the problem with those the problem with the testing phases is you don't know where that athlete is or has been for the last 3 to 6 months.
Yeah.
Like you might be testing and they've just spent a hell of a lot of time doing a strength training block and put all the time to that, and they've got a low gas tank, and then they go, it's like, oh, well, you're not fit right now. That's your actually weakness. And as well, it's my weakness because I've not been doing anything on it.
Yeah.
So it's like you're only seeing them at a snapshot in time, whereas their historic knowledge of themselves as an athlete, knowing when they get to that competition, every time a competition comes around, they always fall down in X, Y, Z events.
Right.
It's all the information we need. So then from there, on the weaknesses, it's then looking at the weakness and going, is it an energy system thing? Obviously, is it a certain time domain? Or is it a movement thing? So it's when certain patterns are constantly repeated, like barbell overhead work, or shoulder to overhead work, or repetitive hinging, the back blows up and everything shuts down.
Yeah.
What is it? Okay, let's go into those analysis of those movements, and then we almost build a program from there where you are. Like we kind of separate the body down into. Separate training down into skill versus threshold.
Right.
We're either working on skill development or we're working on a threshold, and obviously that's a very simplistic way of looking at it. But obviously, every skill has a threshold.
Yeah.
And every as in how many reps could you repeat of that skill, but then there's also then the threshold in a sense of, well, actually when my heart rate's at that, now also the skill disappears. So it's that double-edged sword of the energy system itself could break the form down, or the motor pattern might just break down over time.
Right.
So we kind of separate the training out into, okay, well, let's work on this as a skill in itself and build up the efficiency of that skill before we start to put it into the stressful environments where you've got the interference of
you're taking the intensity down a little bit, doing more like a EMOM style thing where they've got a bit of rest in between, so they're kind of
not necessarily. Maybe sometimes it can literally just be classical kind of maybe a superset of let's say they're missing hip internal rotation on the left leg. It could be internal rotation mobilization on the left leg.
Gotcha.
Then load up the left leg to train it with the new range, and then put it into the squat if you were seeing the lack of internal rotation on the squat. So blending in a mini circuit that, and not necessarily like say EMOM, because I don't want I don't want that elevated threshold there. I literally just want it to be almost that golf swing. Like let's do a rep.
Yeah.
Let's do a rep and let's
tweak,
get the execution, and then over time build it into maybe an EMOM or something like that. So that's kind of the big process. And for some people, that's obviously quite a huge process, because they might have 5, 6, 7 movement deficiencies that they're working on, or for some it's very like Sam, for example. Obviously, Sam's classical stuff is shoulder to overhead, but like the reason, the issues we have with the program is that the shoulder surgery and then the elbow surgery is one of those like where you're trying to improve the shoulder to overhead, and what the fight the whole time with the program is, okay, I need to work the weaknesses, but actually now that becomes jerk, handstand push-ups, handstand walk, and I might want to separate those out across the week.
Yeah.
However, that accumulation acutely and chronically over time just leads to a breakdown in form.
Yeah.
And actually you end up just doing this for the program. And there's that element with coaching and programming where it is I'm always speaking to the athletes like weekly, monthly, and going, right, okay, how is this? Obviously reading their daily training and everything like that, but how are we moving forwards? Are we moving backwards? How is it responding? Do we need and then tweaking the program up and down to work with those, try and find find the way through the jungle.
Gotcha. That's awesome. I think that's a subtle difference. I think taking the testing approach versus just kind of almost like a survey type thing. It's just because it seems like a bit of overkill to put someone through the CrossFit Games just to figure out where their weaknesses are as a CrossFit athlete. So I think that's smart. And talking about Sam, who's just kind of notoriously one of the tougher athletes, who's trained through some like grueling injuries and stuff like that. Obviously that mental toughness is something that need in competition, but they need to be sensitive to in training. Is that something are you talking them through that thing so they can kind of like differentiate the two and turn that, shut the fuck up part of their brain off when they're in training to be sensitive to their injuries? Or how do you help them through those kind of things? Yeah,
I mean, that's I say a big thing that we had to work through with Sam, and that was conversation and realization and the training is just building up that picture and just saying, look, the body can't tolerate it.
Yeah.
Now, like we do just, and they do realize it is an education process from the whole picture basically.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
no, that's not a very good answer, but
it's all right. It's a tough thing to deal with though. It's because I think like the lay person that does CrossFit knows when they're hurt, but someone that's like trained to like turn that part of their brain off when they're competing, it's just tough to differentiate. I mean,
I think it's showing them. Yeah, sorry, I've actually got a clear answer now. So I think the key becomes is like when they send the videos and you show them, look, you see how this is getting overloaded here now. Like this, the fact that this, so like with her elbow was, there was loose fragments that had been there historically, which had already kind of restricted the elbow extension, but unfortunately Sam's actually got an element of hypermobility. So she's got hyperextension in the other side.
Yeah.
So when the barbell goes overhead, all the body wants to know, the body's whole response to the barbell being overhead is, well, I need that barbell over center of mass. And I want that barbell to be, it subconsciously finds even, hopefully.
Yeah.
So it knows that this one's got an extra
couple of
3 degrees,
yeah.
couple of degrees of extension, and this one hasn't. So then in theory, the bar would be like this. But now with that, I'd put pressure on this shoulder, because the bar would be going that way, but instead the compensation becomes then the scap. So then you get the scapular elevation, and it's you then get someone go, oh well, you need to work on his scapula. It's like, yes, you do, but that's not changed. Like you do need to work on his scapula because that's where the problem. But actually, the problem is the elbow, because the bar's not going to be level, and it has to do that compensation. So, like I said, that's then the play with the program is how much can that compensation take before something starts to get annoyed and break down.
Yeah.
And that's where that controlling, then showing them that and saying, right, well, we need to control how many times overhead we go per week, and the parameters of that is the key basically to keeping them going a bit longer. That's
awesome. So I want to talk a little bit about the programming. I think like from what I've read, most of what you do is one-on-one. I think like having some semi-group environment or training partners and stuff is also like a bit of a motivation. bump for most of these people. So most of your athletes, are they working exclusively one-on-one? Are they doing some classes or small group stuff on the side, or what is a snapshot of their programming kind of scope?
I work one-to-one with my coaching athletes, but we do have a Red Pill generic. We've got a generic program now. Mm-hmm. So we are building a community of people in that oversaturated area of CrossFit programs.
Yeah.
We've kind of got the two scenarios. I've got two scenarios going on with my athletes individually, and generally what I do, it really is that their weaknesses are their weaknesses, mm-hmm. and they need to be working on those things to get better. And mm-hmm. It's one of those where we spend that first probably 6 months of the year, they are pretty lonely.
Yeah.
Because they're away doing the bits that they need to do. And then the closer it gets, then we can start to bring them together a little bit more, in a sense, because now we're getting to that sport specific tail of the season. So Sam would always fly back from the States, stay with Emma. And then the organization of the day then is very much like, okay, let's say it's Olympic weightlifting. Like Sam's got her bit she needs to work on, Emma's got her bit she needs to work on. So they're both doing Olympic weightlifting, they're both hitting snatches today, but the program will be different for each athlete.
Yeah.
Then in the afternoon, we'd put a WOD on and then they just throw down together. Nice. So it's still, there's group that dynamics. Element of group dynamics, but then there's still, well, you're doing what you need right now, knowing that they both peak slightly differently and need different energy priorities leading into that back end of the season. So I do work predominantly. Most of my time is spent with them. Obviously, we go pretty deep with it. So it's I'm there to facilitate them being the best version of themselves.
Gotcha.
And I think that's
seems like a smart way to do it. Get a mix of both and still customized enough to hit the weaknesses, but they're still getting that throw down kind of environment where they're getting that push and hitting those aerobic thresholds or anaerobic thresholds, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, I spoke to worked with one of the one of the guys who used to be on the Great British Olympic squad leading into the 2012 Olympics. Mm-hmm. And he had an analogy of the Olympic training program, and he said pretty much like his analogy was, you got a box of a dozen eggs, and they basically just shake the eggs, and they increase the amount that they shake the eggs, and it's almost like the strongest eggs survive. and guess what? They'll be pretty good. And Britain's always been classically turned out very successful rowing teams.
Yeah, true.
And I get that obviously leads to success.
Yeah.
But there's a part of me that the issue I have with it is you've just cost somebody else their dream.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like what if they just needed a little bit less volume?
Mm-hmm.
What if they just needed a little bit more of this?
Yeah.
Could they have done a better job?
For sure.
Like, and knowing that those athletes, some athletes need more, some athletes need less. And it's like having that. It's an experiment I'm enjoying with the generic program that we've got. Like I'm enjoying seeing people make gains, but it's still I leave it under no illusions that if you want to go to another level, you really do need to be more
in tune with individual needs.
You need the individual needs like that. Yeah. That generic, if you're good enough and you're a monster, you'll probably get through it anyway. But and you'll be pretty good. Like that exact analogy that he came up with. But like I say, when you're costing other people their dreams, when it could just be something, well, they just need a different approach and actually they'll take off. Like that's the thing for me.
Yeah, for sure. And I think like most of us tend to get into coaching with the idea that you're helping people. And if you're like helping a percentage and the opposite with other people, I think like just you got that internal kind of battle you're dealing with, right? Where you genuinely want to see people, especially if you're interacting with them one-on-one and you're seeing them regularly, you're not sending them to war and seeing who survives is a little bit extreme.
Yeah, exactly. You're not looking after the person and
Yeah.
Just from that therapy side, it is that I always use the quote from Anchorman: 70% of the time it works every time. It's like just because the evidence says X, Y, Z,
it works. Yeah, it's not going to work in every case. Yeah,
it's not working in every case. So if that person, if you're not helping them, you need to change your tactic.
Yeah, you just can't. It's tough treating people like a statistic because it's otherwise you're losing people. And kind of on that note, I want to segue to a bit of nutrition, and I think like the sort of central dogma around nutrition in games athletes, especially the younger ones, is just macros and just getting calories however they can. But I feel like at some point you're sort of laying a poor foundation, especially looking for longevity. And so when you start to have those conversations around nutrition, or even just like casually, how much of an emphasis is on quality versus just hitting those precise macros all the time? Where do you sort of guide people in that?
I mean, I try and stay away from the nutrition a little bit. I'll always outsource, but I still do have my principles of it, which would be quality always.
Yeah.
Like just from that piece of the analogy I always give people is like, you could eat 1,000 calories of McDonald's and 2 hours later be absolutely starving.
Yeah.
Try and eat 1,000 calories of brown rice, broccoli, and chicken.
Yeah.
You'll be a lot more miserable. But you'll be a lot more full and you'll be sustained for more. So that's always my first point is a calorie isn't a calorie. We've been told that what we've got to remember is that calories assigned to food have been assigned by a process that occurs outside of the human body, burnt in a chamber.
Yeah.
We don't know the rate of digestion, how that occurs, how that burns, how that's assimilated in the body.
Yeah.
We don't know that. So a calorie is just an assigned number. We actually don't know what it means really.
Yeah.
So you can't just go off calories, which is where always come back to the quality of you need that. And then myself I've got an inflammatory bowel condition. So then you've got, well, how well does the person digest it?
Yeah.
If I don't digest food very well, so how much am I actually taking from that food? So again, is a calorie a calorie?
Yeah.
So they're kind of they're my fundamental thoughts and beliefs on it. But as I give myself that much of a headache over people's movement and their actual program writing, that I'd like to assign that headache somewhere else.
Fair enough. I feel you. It's wild to me. Like, I think I'm totally on the same page with you. And I think it's just a little bit wild that almost the norm is just getting calories however you can get them still. And I guess when you get into like 4,000 plus calories, it is tough to make them all quality. And I get that. I still think long term is going to catch up with you, I think. I want to segue a little bit into, we've touched a little bit on injury and overuse and that kind of stuff. And mobility is a huge piece. There is such a thing, and you mentioned this on the website, there's such a thing as too much mobility. When you're trying to sort of get ahead of the curve and get into prehab stuff and prevent injuries, what are the key things you like to think about or kind of coach an athlete through? Is it training volume? Is it sticking with 99+% technique? Is it regular recovery pieces? Is sleep? Like, what's at the top of the list for you when you talk about preventing injuries?
All of the above.
Yeah.
It is. You see so many, like, one of the common things that you see with CrossFit injuries is running injuries. And this is just your general, like, I'm talking about the general class member. Yeah. And it's often the person that's actually had a good training background in running. And what happens is they get into CrossFit, and the addition of strength training provides a stimulus that makes them better at running. And they're like, oh, this CrossFit's really transferring into my running. So then their journey becomes, okay, so I'm going to do less running and I'll do more CrossFit. Yeah. So then the CrossFit volume goes up, run volume comes down. And then all of a sudden they go, oh, I've missed running. I'm going to go out and run 10K. And CrossFit's given them the ability to cope with a high heart rate.
Mm-hmm.
It's given them the strength in the legs. So actually they've got good speed. But actually what's missing is the tissue tolerance to the impacts.
Right. Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, like, they're like, oh, I went out running and I've had Achilles pain ever since. And I never used to get injured and they're not actually injured. They're just, the Achilles didn't have the tolerance of the impacts because they've done that with the run volume. Then they've gone out, they've still got because they've maintained the fitness level, they've still got the ability to run hard, cope with that threshold, but actually the body doesn't have the tolerance to the work anymore.
Right.
So yes, that kind of the ability to build the volume in the program, the recovery from it, but also training them to be in bad positions.
Right.
Like letting them know that like you can lift with a bad back sometimes. Yeah. Not repetitively. I won't ask you to do it at max, but sub-maximally having that neurological understanding of position
for sure
is also needed.
And getting that body awareness in bad positions, you're more likely to feel the right position when you felt the wrong one. So I think that's super valuable. Absolutely. So you talk about tissue tolerance. I think that's definitely got to be a consideration when you're talking about the amount of volume most CrossFit athletes are putting in. How much of a consideration is the repetitive kind of tolerance when you're thinking about either periodizing your changes throughout the season, like going from like obviously a strict strength program where there's less cardio and then going into higher volume and running would be like an extreme example. But do you have like kind of a transition period in programming where you're sort of slowly ramping up volume in certain capacities, or what does that look like, James?
So I work completely differently, or we work completely differently to Red Pill. Our philosophy is very different to most others, in that we're always spinning the plates.
Okay.
So we've got each plate needs to keep spinning.
Yeah.
And we can't just go high strength, low cardio.
Right.
Because each athlete, like apart from maybe Sam, who can leave out cardio for long periods of time and only then needs 3-4 weeks to get fit. Most people aren't actually that fit.
That's why
their cardiovascular capacity isn't actually that good. So you can't leave it alone that much. And that's unfortunately like what we see is what we say to our athletes is you will hit your maxes when you need to hit your maxes. I'm not here like I know we choose a strength program, 5-3-1, hatch, small off, choose what you want to choose, reduce the volume, do that. Yes, you'll get stronger. Now, as you add things in, you're going to lose and take that neurological stimulus away. You're going to lose the strength anyway. So why make your gains to put you 20 kilos on, but then actually lose 10 kilos of it as you get fit?
Right.
I'd rather constantly just keep everything ticking over.
1%.
Add in the 1%, like filtering things in and out and have everything just incrementally come in and get that 10 kilos at the end, but without losing. So they made a 20 kilo increase and a 10 kilo drop. I'll make the 10 kilo increase at the peaking point of the season when with everything else already up a notch. Right. Which is the hard thing for the athletes to deal with as well.
Mentally, I guess too, because it's always similar kind of stimulus. Just I think that's tricky. But long term, if you're thinking about that, I like that approach as well. In talking about the mental piece, I want to talk a little bit about that. This is obviously something you talk about. I think the top level athletes, most of them say the mental piece is the difference. The kind of strategy, like you're just going deeper into that red zone than people can, or even just mentally knowing who's around you and how. Those kind of pieces of gaming at next when we're in competition. How much of a focus is the mental piece for you? And when someone's prepping for a competition, what have been some of the golden nuggets you can kind of give the people heading in that have worked really well?
The biggest thing is knowing yourself. Yeah. People get very caught up in
what's around them and
how somebody else did that workout. Like how they do the workout is completely different to how they might be a different athlete. They might be more power based than you.
Yeah.
Or it might be more endurance based. Their strength in the workout might be the gymnastic portion.
Yeah.
It might be the weightlifting portion, in which case you need to approach that workout in a completely different manner to
just knowing where you can push and where you need to
exactly and where to back off. Because I always say when it comes to that red zone, as you called it, it's a one-way ticket.
Yeah, true.
If you cash your chips into the red zone, there's no coming back. So make sure when you go in, make sure it's the right time. If you go in at 3, 2, 1, go, and it's a 15, 20-minute workout,
good luck.
You're going to have a bad day.
Yeah.
and it's the biggest thing is creating that calm. It's getting the athlete to see the success in the execution and stay calm in the fact that everybody else has gone.
Yeah.
That's the biggest thing, the biggest challenge is that letting them know that they're going to go and you're going to do this. Yeah. Unless, of course, you then, like some people, like Matt and Tia, will just go and they'll just keep going. See you later. Yeah. they're in a different stratosphere to everybody else.
True enough. It's almost like a double whammy otherwise, because like you're having to physically increase, and then there's also a bit of a panic, like everyone else ahead of me, so your heart rate's just going to beat up that much more. It's wild. And having that bit of poise, I think, like, you just see that when you're watching the games, like someone that's okay with being 10th in an event for most of it, and then knowing when they can push. And so I think that's a solid piece there.
I think it takes time. The thing is, it takes time as well, because it's all well and good seeing it in training. Yeah. Again, it's then dealing with that. It doesn't matter what you're doing in training. Get them on that start line with their competitors right next to them, with that money on the line, that everything that is about for that athlete, that pressure. And they go from thinking clearly to thinking like 4-year-old. Yeah. And all the bad decisions and the rationality is gone. Yeah, that's true. And that's a big thing. Like Red Pill co-partner Phil, he's the psychology trained, so he spends a lot of time on that. But I work in it. Again, I touch on it. Cool. I have my own way of going about it, but a lot of the teachings that we talk about there is all from Phil's background.
Very cool. James, I want to talk to you a little bit about the changes in the CrossFit season. And if you're coaching, I think like you said, constantly rotating the plates, I think there's an advantage to having, less of an off season, maybe. In the sense that, you've got like games and you got Dubai and then you got Rogue and then you got all these other events. It's getting a little less sporadic, I think, than it was there kind of in transition. How, and maybe it's still in flux. What are your thoughts of the current like structure of the season right now? And if you were given the keys, what would the season look like for you?
I think, what we always sit down with the athletes and talk about is, well, what is the priority? Mm-hmm. And then we are always aiming for that particular point in time. Yeah. And this is where we use the plate spinning to go, right, we're going to go to this competition and we've been doing little to no conditioning, or we've been doing very high rep work whatever, high weight, high load. We've been doing strength and no fitness, depending on what the athlete is. Right. Let's go to that competition and let's see how much have we gained or lost. Right. So has your fitness dropped off and you're feeling it, you're noticing it in the competition, or has it basically, where are you sitting right now? Right. And you using those competitions as a better marker, better gauge of the weaknesses. Okay, that's on its way up, but still needs to go further. And we've not lost the fitness. So actually, we can leave the fitness operating at a little bit lower for a little bit longer and try and push that strength up a bit more. And like using it as a controlling the year's periodization more so to see where they need to be. Yeah. That's so in a sense of the season doesn't really matter in a sense of that. And depending obviously the level of the athlete. Yeah. ultimately, if you're somebody that needs to peak for quarterfinals, then you're like, once you peaked, you peaked.
Yeah.
I mean, in the endurance world, they'll say there's like, you've got like 2 peaks a year, 2 to 3 peaks a year, depending on how well you do it, and that takes time.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, like, in a sense of, if you're going all in to get to the games or to get to that next stage, then whatever comes after it is probably going to be down from where you were, because you hit your true peak at that earlier stage. So it obviously depends on getting that athlete competent enough that they can be almost operating at 85-90% to get through each
the whole season. Yeah.
The whole season, to then actually get that 85% at regionals, to then actually be able to top for the games.
Yeah.
It's obviously a bit of a risk in Europe because the density is just stupid.
Yeah.
it's so brutal. Like, you look at when we look at some of the other regions, like in America, and you see like first place in an event is 6 minutes, and person in second and third are like 3-4 minutes behind. It's like, that wouldn't happen in Europe. Like, they are literally in
neck
pockets and bubbles and neck and neck. And if you have a bad event, it is game over.
Yeah, true enough.
That is a tough one in Europe. The guys are having to be at that little bit. They have to be in a better state, a more peaked state than the other regions, in my opinion. But that's it.
For sure. And with that kind of environment, it almost comes down to like, who just has a better day or who's less hurt that week, or kind of thing, not necessarily representative of their whole capacity. James, has been awesome. Let me talk a little bit about what's going on with Red Pill for the rest of the year. Talk a little bit about the programs you guys offer and what's going on for the rest of the year.
Yeah, so Red Pill, we've got obviously the generic platform, which has 2 primary pathways. Mr. Anderson, which is for those of you that just want to be healthy, an hour of training a day, learn to get some movement, like to develop the good skills. So that skill threshold piece, it's more skill based. And then the threshold work is very simple movements, simple, rowing, dumbbell snatches, keep everything, like keep your fitness really ticking over, and then develop those sexy skills at the top. Trinity is then the more competitive program with 2 at the moment 2 hours of training a day, and then we have like bolt-on options for people that want to work on extra skills, and the bolt-ons are periodized alongside the program. Cool. So they adapt every 3 weeks, like the program adapts. And then there's the coaching side, where people can either work as like there's 2 packages, there's like the pro package and the elite package. So that's then for the one-to-one stuff. And the difference between the pro and the elite, pro is basically the contact time. So the elite package, you get to bug the life out of us, pretty much. And the pro package is more like that 1 call a month, and then you program written and like a little bit of a review. But the elite package is where we spend hours speaking to guys. So
amazing. Well, with the athletes doing as well as there, it seems like you're doing great things with that program. I want to shift a little bit into your personal habits. And I know you just had an injury, so maybe this is a soft topic right now, but talk me through where your health habits are, not just fitness necessarily, strength, biohacking, health, sleep. Where is your main priority right now with your own personal health and well-being, and what do your habits look like around that?
This is a constant battle. I'll be honest. It's something I like been open. I know what I should do. I know what I coach. My life is coaching and being better at coaching. Which, and having 2 kids and I know these are, some people turn around their excuses. Honestly, my list of priorities, myself is at the bottom. And it's something I'm constantly working on.
Fair enough.
The first thing to go in the day is my training. It's improving. kind of like just being that, like my health was better when I just worked in a gym, and had set hours and everything like that. Whereas it is almost that coaching side of almost taking away the fact that I've got set hours and I'm just constantly on the phone. So I say where I'm getting success with is, I've gone from I don't set an alarm anymore. I let my body sleep if it needs the extra sleep, which has been the big change for me. Because at the end of the week, I'm actually ending up with the same amount of work still left to do. I'm less tired. Yeah. So that's a win. That's been the win now. And then the nutrition is, I've moved myself. I used to be very metronomic. I'm trying to move back to set meal times. Yeah. But I used to be, which is what I used to do. But then I literally just became slave to the breakfast in the morning, maybe get lunch, maybe not get lunch, crack through, and then in the evening just there. So I will hold my hands up and reflect on myself as a needs work. Didn't mean to shine the light on you. No. Yeah. I mean, the thing is, like we live in a world where I'm showing my age and my distaste of social media here, but how much of it's really real? Yeah, it's true. I'm just being real. Like, I dedicate my life to that, and it's tough. It's tough to find that balance, and I think that's something people see coaches, coaching people to great feats in fitness and health and that stuff, and they assume they've got everything figured out, and it is tough when especially because most of us genuinely care about seeing our people get better, right? So it's the amount of sleep I lose sleep over my athletes. Because it matters. For sure. Because it matters the same way as it mattered to me when I was the athlete. Pursuing my dream. For sure. How can I help them? Like it's that. It's a big thing. But something that's I've turned the corner recently. So it's moving more back on track, but it's been kids are the worst thing you can do with your life. I feel you, man. Cool. Awesome. Well, James, it's been an unreal chat. What's the best place for people to link up with your content? Content, well, you've seen me on social media. It's non-existent. There will be Red Pill training. They turn out most of the content. There is a Red Pill generic handle, which will be getting busier. We kind of got two separate pieces, just trying to really separate the coach and the generic. Just follow those two handles. Follow myself. You might occasionally see something, but fair enough. I'm not trying to keep up with the kids nowadays. Fair enough. Well, we'll link to that in the show notes. Thanks again for the time, man. This has been great. Pleasure. Cheers, Greg. Awesome. Thanks for doing this episode of Healthspan Academy, guys. We'll see you next time. Hey, what's up, guys? Thanks for tuning in today. Hope you enjoyed the episode. Thank you so much for supporting this channel. This has been a fun project. We're growing in viewership every single week, and we obviously couldn't do that without you. So thank you for continuing to tune in. I really hope you're getting value out of the programming and the content. Just wanted to give you a heads up. I've been working on a book on health and longevity the last couple of years, been collaborating with my colleague, Dr. Dan Vitale, who's an expert in the field as well. And we've basically just kind of summarized the literature, some of the techniques that we found really useful in the world of biohacking, what our exercise regimen looks like, what's, cardio type stuff is going to help us live longer and healthier, mobility work, nutrition. We've covered the whole spectrum, everything that you can basically be in control of in your health and fitness kind of moving forward to help you live as healthily as possible for as long as possible. And it's available free for download. So if you click on the YouTube banner, you'll see a link to download the blueprint. It's also on our Instagram profile or on the website. You can click on 5pillarmethod.com/optimize to get your free copy of the book. And I hope you enjoy it. Hope you're keeping well. Thanks again for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.